Well, hello and welcome to the AFS Technologies Monthly Learning Series. Thank you to all for joining us today. My name is Ian Faith, and I'll be hosting today's session entitled AFS Empowers Using TPM to Predict Lift Factors to Maximize Trade Spend, Predictive Modeling Using Nielsen Data with Client Guest SunnyD. In today's presentation, Joel Cartwright, who is the Director of Product Development for Trade Promotion Management Retailer AFS Technologies, will be presenting this webinar on predictive modeling using Nielsen data. Introducing an exciting new concept in trade planning and management, a low-risk, cost-effective approach to predictive analytics incorporating Nielsen data. SunnyD Delight Beverage is currently successfully utilizing this capability. For a manufacturer who wants this functionality but are still unsure if it's right for you, or if you're uncertain if your end users will grasp it or hesitant about adopting a predictive planning concept in your trade process at all, this is a webinar to attend. To clarify, predictive modeling is a process used in predictive analytics to create a statistical model of future behavior. Predictive analytics is the area of data mining concerned with forecasting probabilities and trends. And so today to help present, or actually to present, is Joel Cartwright. Joel, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Joel, thanks for being with us today, and thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to do this. Joel Cartwright has a storied history in the CPG industry. For over 20 years, he's had a passion for success, and it's exemplified in his years as a senior solution engineer at AFS with Trade Promotion Management Retail. Joel's hands-on product knowledge, coupled with his ability to connect business needs with efficient solutions, makes him an asset to all he works with. He's an expert in trade promotion management and demand planning, formerly with Sara Lee Foods, SunnyD Delight Beverage, and Kimberly-Clark. Also joining us today, but joining us remotely, will actually be Chris Miller. Chris Miller couldn't be with us today. He's from SunnyD Delight Beverage, but we had a chance to interview him, and we've actually made his responses and his perspectives available throughout this webinar. Let me actually let Chris, in his own voice, introduce himself.
Yeah, right now I work at SunnyD Delight. I'm the Director of Revenue Management, and what that means is I own the trade budget, and working within the TPM tool, also have category management, the demand planning rolling up through me, as well as our master data management. We've been using the TPM tool for 12 years when it was MEI before it was purchased with AFS. And what we've always found is that we've had a great relationship with AFS in terms of, if they want customers to call us to see how we use the tool, that's something, we'd love to do for them. And then in terms of projects like this where they can go to us, Joel worked at SunnyD Delight. I think you guys have seen that. So he understands our system and he understands how it can work. So I think the partnership there is something that benefits, us and AFS in terms of developing better tools for everyone to use. And, that's where we've kind of gone with them. And Joel's been in a variety of different backgrounds and able to use those. And then in terms of our field, we have great relationships with the field, and they're able to test and try different things to help make the business better. So, and that's the role that I play within the company, and how we've had a great relationship with AFS throughout the years.
I also talked to Chris about SunnyD Delight and asked him if he could give us an overview of the company.
Yeah, SunnyD Delight was the foundation of SunnyD Delight is to provide beverages for multiple occasions for the family use. And if you look at the brands that we have in our portfolio, SunnyD Delight, Very Fine, Fruit 2.0, those are beverages that are meant to hit different occasions, different family structures. And what I mean by that is, we have a SunnyD Delight, which is a kid-friendly beverage, and we go to Fruit 2.0, which the foundation is basically the mom in the household that's been working hard all day, and she just wants a beverage that can satisfy, that has a little flavor to it, and that's what Fructuo provides for the family. And then Very Fine, which is the Northeast the United States heritage, which foundation came from a long time ago based on Northeast principles and providing juices to the family that they can use for all-day occasions.
So Joel, let me turn it over to you to talk about the overview of the AFS Nielsen Relationship and the rest of the webinar.
Great, Ian. Thank you very much. Thanks to Chris. Unfortunately, he couldn't hear me for those kind words. We do appreciate his partnership and support as a provider for Delight Beverage. So how did this all start? Kind of an overview between the AFS and Nielsen relationship. What we found AFS being more of a partner rather than just a vendor, providing our customers functionality and capabilities that they can evolve into and providing them direction in the marketplace. AFS was approached by AC Nielsen to provide a low-cost, low-risk, cost-effective predictive analytics solution that could be embedded into a TPM tool. The win for the Nielsen side is that it opens up a whole new marketplace where traditionally predictive analytics capabilities were only reserved for the Tier 1 clients. But with the functionality and the delivery methodology that Nielsen provides with their predictive capability, it allows them to penetrate in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 space, a customer who typically wasn't able to have access to this type of modeling. Key aspect as well is Nielsen's modeling service offers hundreds of models that represent almost every consumer goods product sold today. They're constantly doing case studies. They're constantly updating. And so what Nielsen provides us with is that huge library of case studies, pricing studies, and predictive models, that they've opened up out of their library. Next slide, please. So from here, the exercise that SunnyD went through was really to empower their sales force to be more of account managers, to basically run their piece of the company as a business, and needing to understand, specific selling results to accounts, and being assigned a contribution objective. Essentially, it's the account manager's new business become business as their objectives, based upon contribution rather than top-line sales. And this goes back to the way Delight was founded as far as their lean management structure and really focused on profitability as we were owned by a private equity firm. As such, product mix and effective trade spend became a must because with the contribution objective target now coming, the trade spend budget didn't get increased in order to hit that objective. So what that did is it provided a need for a simplistic approach to predict the lift for a specific promotion or tactic and get the most out of their trade dollars. What's the ideal price point? What's the ideal promotion tactic? Also, Sunny didn't want to have to install a brand new optimization tool or predictive tool outside of the TPM solution. Because the account managers worked within the TPM application, it was more beneficial to put that capability within the tool. The second component, as I mentioned, Sunny is really focused on lean and optimization of the supply chain. So forecast accuracy is a driving force within the objective measures. So what this means is that the account managers are held accountable for a forecast accuracy metric. That forecast is fed and compared to as a litmus test into the demand planning tool. And the more accurate the forecast can be out of the TPM tool to essentially capture incremental events that may be year over year that are not in the demand plan. So what this predictive capability does, it provides another litmus test which they can use to predict what a new price point would be, what a length of a predicted tactic would do, and what that would return as far as incremental volume. The account managers would use that lift factor as their incremental volume forecast. This was input within the TPM tool, and this was provided as a component, as a very simplistic point to get this predictive capability. Let's go to the next slide. So here, what were the challenges? What do they want to do but couldn't? And what were their repercussions? So the challenge is, as I mentioned, they could not effectively align the promotion information that exists in the TPM tool to the pricing studies, and in turn align what the pricing studies are telling them back into TPM. It's the age-old challenge. Trade promotion management software is designed from a planning standpoint around shipment plans, around the ship-to points, where the predictive capabilities are more in line with the end user. So the idea is, how can we get those pricing studies and these type of predictive capabilities within the TPM tool to have it be impactful to the overall plan? The repercussions that this was creating is they're not utilizing the studies that they were already paying for and how they were deployed as a pricing or a tactic within the tool. They really weren't using this. So they were paying for price points, and tactics that they were probably not getting, and they weren't able to compare those to the pricing studies they were paying for from AC Nielsen. So what was the challenge? The challenge was the way to provide the business managers in the field a simplistic way to do predictive analytics from an ad hoc perspective and do multiple types of scenarios. The second capability is they don't want to have to train them on a new application and creating a swivel chair between a predictive tool and a TPM tool. They want to provide also a cost-effective approach. They didn't want to do predictive analytics on every customer out there. They wanted to dip their toe in the pool and say, all right, let's try Kroger in a couple of SKUs, and let's see if this works. Provide a proof of concept. So that was the low-cost, low-risk aspect. And then the last component is there are minimal IT resources available to implement another application or do another project. So it had to be embedded within the tool. And all these led to the repercussions is, again, the inability to effectively allow business managers to analyze and understand the various price and tactics that were occurred, which they can use and better understand and to drive contribution. Next slide, please, Ian. So why did Sunny go with AFS Nielsen? Let me talk a little bit, and I'll let Chris tell it to you in his own words. So Sunny was utilizing Nielsen to do their promotion lift modeling, and it was outside of the tool. And in order to prove the forecast accuracy, as I mentioned, on the incremental volume and event, in addition, to see the impact of that volume at different promoted price points, they had to take the model lift factor and compare and input that factor into the incremental volume forecast. So let Chris tell you in his own words his take and how the concept was really born.
We've always had a really good relationship with AFS and MEI. We've had the trade promotion tool for feels like 12 years now, and it's been something we've had a great partnership with them where, if new companies are looking at coming on, they'll give us a call and we'll give them the pros and the cons of the tool. And it's a very simple tool, and it's something that our field feels very comfortable with, and we're able to do a lot of different analysis with that tool. And then recently, as of a year ago, we've been working with Nielsen on one of their tools on what we can do with one of our major customers in terms of being more efficient with our trade. And it was a great tool, and what happened is, at the time we wanted to expand it and do different things with that tool, and in talking with Nielsen and Joel and Mike, that's something that they saw value in as well. And it just made sense to have something that we understood how the Nielsen tool worked and the benefits it has, and it allows you to play with different price points and different promotions and understand, okay, in terms of hitting a year, what works for us and what works for the manufacturer. But the hard part about that is it takes some time to go through. You have to sit down and work it with your, region manager out there. And, there was a simpler tool. So I think the fact that AFS, has really worked well in doing simple, easy-to-use tools out there with Nielsen, who has a great analytical database, is they were able to combine forces. And what we've seen with, other companies sometimes is when they do that, they make the tool really complex. And working with, Nielsen and AFS, I said this needs to be really simple. And the solution they came up with was really simple. But it allows you, it allows the regional out there to set a plan to understand how they can be more efficient with their trade. And, you know, it's in terms of the complexity, I'll just touch on this a little bit more. All it is a basic click of the button that allows you to see what your lift is and understand how you can use that lift and forecast within the tool. So everything's all within one, and you can work with, you know, finance to understand what you want to do. So it's also a tool that allows you to say, okay, if our focus is going to be on revenue, these are the different routes I can place based on the lift factors, or if it's going to be on contribution, here's what it is. But for us as a company, one thing we've always pushed is we try to make our salespeople responsible for our top line, because that's super important, but also bottom line. So every action that they do, they understand what it does to the bottom line. And this is a tool that allows you to work with your retailer on a provider like Nielsen that everyone has faith in and everyone understands them. But then with all of them, the trade tool for you to effectively plan and hit your revenue and your contribution objectives, but doing it with a tool that gives you good comfort in calling the volumes that are going to happen based on the price point investments you're going to put out there in the marketplace.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. That's good thoughts, and we do appreciate the response. So how does this all work? Well, first let's talk about the challenge. As Chris mentioned, having to use the TPM tool and the secondary predictive analytics tool that Nielsen offers. So what we wanted to do is combine those tools basically together and eliminate the swivel chair. As Chris mentioned too, we wanted it very simple. It's that simple button within the application. As Chris talked, he said that their account managers were very much acquainted to and very much familiar with the TPM tool. They live in it every day. So how do we expand that capability? It's very simple. So what we do now is connect through the TPM tool to the Nielsen Predictive Analytics tool. The first step that has to take place is, as I mentioned, the TPM tool really associates with the shipment volume or the shipment plan. So what has to take place first is a mapping capability. So we have to map the Kroger Peyton warehouse to how Nielsen captures in their models the predictive for the Peyton warehouse. So there's a mapping process that takes place. Nielsen manages that. They have a specific application that's designed to do that. The second component as it relates to mapping are the products. You know, typically in our TPM tools, we have the capability of planning at multiple levels. So I'm sending over a promoted pricing group to Nielsen, but they have to map it down to a selling unit at shelf. So that mapping is taking place during the implementation. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The last component I have to do some mapping are the performance tactics. And within our TPM tools, they're highly configurable. So TPR could be the way temporary price reduction, the way we describe it in the TPM tool. But that's not how it's described in the Nielsen, so we have to do some mapping there. So I'm grabbing those three components, the customer, the product, and the date range, the price point, and the tactic that I want to model. And all this is mapped during the implementation. The connection between our TPM tool and Nielsen can be done in about 4 weeks. It's very simple and very quick on how it can be done. The first conversation we have, though, is with Nielsen. Is what do you want to model? What do you want to look at? What are your outcomes that you want to do? Do you want to do jump head first into the pool, or do we just want to stick our toe in and keep it very a la carte and try a proof of concept? So what that does is that low risk, low cost of getting into the predictive capability. Once that's done, the models are then connected to the hierarchy structure after the data mapping. So once that's done and complete, what happens, the user will go into our TPM tool, and there's a button within the promotion or plan that they push, Get Model Lift Factor. And in that lift factor button, it tells this particular components and what are the components and causal factors within the model. So now we give light on where that number is coming from. Historically, with the predictive tool, it's kind of a black box. We're not really sure how they're getting that number. So what we do is provide the end user with an overview. Okay, this is how they're arriving at the number. This is how it's coming back. So what happens, the user clicks that button, and through a web call, it sends the information to AC Nielsen. And what they do is they take the data points, the date range, the price point, if that's what you're modeling, or the tactic. They model it and then send it back. The transfer and the trip takes all of about a second and a half. It's that quick. And when you would ever see it demonstrated, you would see how quickly it is. And as a user, I can click that button several times. Let's go with $1.99. What does that get me? What if I adjust the ACV to X? Or what if I did this tactic? I can just keep hitting that button, and it sends me back the information. So we brought that scenario predictive capability within the TPM tool. Because it's embedded in the TPM tool and it's one button, there is no training. You point them to the button and tell them what to click, and that gets the lift factor. And within the tool, it tells them what's being modeled. So it's all done through a web call. So the key takeaway here, it's very simplistic to the end user. It's low risk, low cost, because we're very much a la carte as far as what they're going to be modeling within the tool. And additionally, they can expand. You can expand later on after you've done a proof of concept to say, hey, this works out. I think I'm going to try it a little bit further. So you can expand the capability. So it's all done via the web through a web call. Next slide, please, Ian.
Well, Joel, this is where I actually talked to Chris about some results. And what I'll do is actually I'll actually talk to the questions I asked Chris, and then we'll get Chris's response. So first, I actually asked Chris, given the new capability that's embedded holistically within the TPM tool, do you believe that this efficiency saves time and resources versus, pardon me, previous activity around inputs to list assumptions?
And I think it depends on your organization. If it's an organization that uses scan data, a lot of times we use scan data after the fact to say, how did this promotion do and what can we do to do changes? And this allows you to be more proactive with promotions and understand what it's going to do. And also it allows you leverage to work with your retailers and say, hey, if I can do this price point and I can get this display levels and this, this amount of ACV on promotion, this is what allows us to do for our business and your business. So it saves resources from that, but I think the biggest savings is the efficiency in trade. And trade is such a huge portion of CPG companies nowadays that if you can save trade by 1% or be more efficient with your trade by 1%, that's a huge saving to the bottom line. So while there are resources, it helps you save resources because you don't have to work with Nielsen data and your TPM solution. This combines everything. I think the huge win is always trying to understand how you can be more efficient with your trade, and this is a great step forward towards that.
And do you find that the new predictive analytics is closer to actuals?
So what we did is, and we use this as a test. So this is, like I said earlier, trade is such a huge portion to every line. So we didn't want to roll this out everywhere. We just wanted to roll this out to one customer and one regional, and did that and took a look at how the tool basically did versus promotions that we already ran out in the marketplace. And when we looked at that data and we saw how the promotions did based on the display levels that we got, it was really accurate. So now that we had faith in that, the next step for us was, and we're still in that process, is working with the regional out there that are more, hey, if you can get these regionals to believe, basically it's going to spread across your entire company. So they're the trend setters. And that's the phase that we're working on now, is now that we've worked with one of our biggest retailers out there, let's work with regionals that have, if we can get them to believe in the tool, then this is something that they're going to use in planning going forward, but then they're going to push it across from within their channel, within the people that they work with, and that's a framework that we use to roll this out.
And can you provide an improvement rate towards that accuracy?
I think there's always an improvement. I think one of the ways that it can improve is, and we've talked it with Mike and Joel, is, hey, it doesn't allow us to play with our everyday price points and see what that does. And I think it does. That's one thing that we haven't tested as much, but it allows you to play with your base promotions and your promoted prices and really get, okay, how can this be efficient? Right now, a lot of what we tested initially was just the promoted price points and understanding that. But there's a lot of trade that goes into everyday prices, and that's something that we need to look at as well, see how we can play with our everyday prices and what that needs to be at in our promoted pricing in order to hit the pricing architecture we're laying out there.
And one of the challenges listed was the fact that business managers in the field needed the business managers to analyze and understand variations to price and tactics. Can you talk to that and expand on why that was needed?
Okay. The field operates a lot on gut feel, and I think that's a lot of organizations, and that's a great quality to have because they understand their customers. But this is a tool that allows them to understand different price points. So there's always hurdles and changing price points with our field. So this is a great way, if you can get them comfortable with the tool and the promotions they have out there, that they're able to say, okay, well, what if I did this? What if I did this? And it allows them, and they'll probably want to test it on certain accounts and say, hey, I'm going to try this on one account and see how this does. But it takes away the gut feel and it puts data with it. So I think the best thing with our feel is to have them operate with data and then their gut feel, and then that's the best way to me that they can work with their customers and make a change, because now that they understand, hey, if I go to switch price points and go from just say $1.50 to $2, I know the customer, here's what the data says, and I can use that data to leverage to talk to that customer, but I can also show it's a win to the customer as well because it's going to drive their top line more. So them understanding the buyers and understanding that gut feel and their experience in the field combining with data is a huge plus.
So what initially interested SunnyD to engage with AFS Nielsen Predictive Analytics?
Well, to us, I think, Nielsen, this is what they're good at. This is their bread and butter, and it's not ours. It's predictive analytics, how you can use that. And, we use their tools, and I think, when we sat down with them initially before we even talked about using this within the AFS tool, they really understand the data, and they've been doing this for tons of customers, and just having their insights, and if you can use them and work with them on doing a couple of these, they can provide you just general insights that you're not even thinking through. For example, we went through the first customer with them. They said, well, what if you try this or this? And those are some areas that we never even looked at, and we started trying some of those promotions, and then started being more efficient. So having a provider out there that has an extensive knowledge of the industry and what's worked and not worked, and applying that to your business is a huge plus.
So how challenging was it to implement and start using the AFS Nielsen solution, and was there a steep learning curve?
Actually, normally I like to get in the weeds when some of these projects start, so I understood how everything works. They, in terms of how AFS and working with Nielsen was able to align our markets to the Nielsen markets, I was really concerned that it would take some time to do that, but their knowledge of, how all the UPCs and the customers roll up, it really helped for how we promotions. And I would say the one hard part is we probably need to change how we have our hierarchies in the system to better align to our Nielsen customers, so that we could get better data reads for certain promotions we have out there.
So Joel, I'll let you come back in and talk a little bit about the benefits of this, and then we'll hear Chris's take on it.
No, very good. Thanks, Ian. Those are good points that Chris talked about. SunnyD has been utilizing the capability since April of 2016. So this is they're the proof of concept customer. We have a couple others that are the proof of concept customers as well who are utilizing the tool. Initially, this was thought to be difficult to see an overall impact to the proof of concept. However, what they've reviewed is the actual incremental volume, as Chris talked about. The predicted volume was very close to the actual. So the success benefit was the fact that the forecast was that much more accurate. Of course, the forecast, as I mentioned before, goes downstream from a supply chain standpoint, as well as from a trade spending, how much I have to accrue, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of benefits just from having an accurate forecast that roll downstream. And then based upon that accuracy outcome, they saw the capability, they saw low risk, they saw the low cost. So what they want to do is invest in the modeling capability and expand it to other customers, as Chris talked about, other customers and products. Say, okay, it works for this customer. Let's try it with this one. Let's expand it out. Because Chris touched upon it as well. It's not only, it's a concept. It's new predictive. It's kind of new to their organization. And the fact that they empower their business managers to take ownership of the business, there's a change management process. But keeping it simple and making sure they understand where the lift factors are coming from, and then proving out based upon the accuracy that they're getting, it makes sense. It makes sense to roll out, and you get the rest of the organization to buy into it. And let's hear what Chris, his kind of take on that, as Ian mentioned.
Yeah, based on what we've seen so far, it's actually almost too simple, and that's not even a bad thing. I love the ability to just, click a button and see your numbers, and it's not a lot of analysis. And what I love about it, too, is, I'm in the TPM tool all the time because, my background is finance, and I work with the field in terms of their trade deals. But when you're in the field and you're traveling quite a bit, having either to go to another system or being really complex and hard to use, that to me is something that's always flagged. So having something where you just quickly put your price points and it gives you a lift factor, and you can either have it imported in or you could just use it to say, okay, if I know the lift is going to be this to my standard base business, this, you can put that yourself. Because it's not always a one-for-one if you're selling through a wholesaler or different customers like that. But it's actually a really simple tool, and I really like it for that. And it's something that, as we go forward, continuing to develop this tool and making it simple is going to be key.
So Joel, what's next?
Thanks, Ian. So what's next for Sunny Delight? So as we talked about, Sunny wants to expand the models to encompass other customers, products, additional tactics, and expand out to the rest of their organization. They're coming up on their annual planning process. So the key deliverable for this is that the predictive capability within the tool will be encompassed in the planning. So it's right in line with when the planning is going to take place with Sunny. So they're expanding the models, and because it can be implemented so quickly, it'll be in time for the planning capability. What we're doing with Nielsen is we are expanding the relationship. We kind of shook hands, and now we're going to start down this path. The initial stop on the path was the lift factors and the incremental volume capability. Now we want to encompass base volume modeling into the tool. So again, a low-cost, low-risk capability on how to model base volume, which is ultimately the biggest question when you're in the Tier 2, Tier 3 space. What's my base volume? Where are we getting that number? I know it. In working with our customers here at AFS, I can ask 12 customers, where does your base come from? I'm going to get 12 different answers. So to expand that capability and provide another litmus test or reference point for the clients, the end users in the field, to help do their forecasting and plan that much better. And for the overlying tone here is how they can be more efficient with their trade spend. Next slide. So Ian, it looks like it's time for questions.
Yeah, both of us there. Hey, so we actually have a slew of questions. So first, I'm actually just going to apologize to the audience and just say we probably can't cover every one of them that we've got here, but what we will do is we'll get a chance to reach out to everyone and at least address their questions by email from what they've put in as well. So let me just pick a few out of here. What's the typical implementation time, Joel?
To get this up and running with our CPM tool, or if you've got a not an AFS client, what we found, it takes about 4 weeks to get the models built or have the models align, do the data mapping, and then turn on the capability within our tool. Of course, if it's a different tool, it could take some different time, but that's what we found. It takes about 4 weeks to get this up and running. And it all depends on what you want to model.
Right. And it also says, there's a question here, how do you control the coefficient? Without any more detail there, is that something you can address?
Yeah, the coefficients can be, are basically built within the model. So you can describe when we're talking with Nielsen, what coefficients you want to make sure to address, how much more bearing or how much more weight you want to give one coefficient or the other. You can certainly give input. As far as the ACV levels and so forth, those can be controlled within the points of distribution, essentially the points of distribution. Those can be controlled in the TPM tool, and they can become part of the web call over to the predictive modeler.
Okay, great. Another question in here, do customers know the metrics and models for predictive data in advance? Are they given a menu of possible combined data points with AC Nielsen data?
They are. So when all the modeling is done and the models are built, what we do is, at least the customers who are on our TPM tools, what we do is we provide what that looks like within the application. So there's a question mark within our tools you can click on and say, what does that mean? Show me the model. Show me what they look like. And it's simplified to where we can, for the end user. We also provide them the data mapping, how the data mapping works as well. So all those data points are available to the end user.
Beautiful. And then we'll just take one more, and then, as I say, our apologies to everyone else, and we'll definitely address these all by email with you so you'll get the exact answer that you're looking for. But what factors are indicated to create base?
The factors indicate that they're going to create base is really up to your product and the pricing that you want to do. They would be specific for particular customers. So that's something else that we would allow Nielsen to address prior to building their models, because everyone is kind of ad hoc. So we would leave that up to Nielsen to kind of describe those data points.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Joel, thank you very much. And actually, just while we remember, we're going to be at POI this year. So, Joel, can you talk to our presence there and where people can come maybe meet us while we're at POI?
Absolutely. We will be at the POI event in Dallas in early November. We are hoping that Chris from Sunny Delight will also be there, and he can share his experience, further to DL, because that much 3 more months down the road, they'll be more than likely expanded this across the rest of the customer base as well, have some better understanding of how the predictive capability was utilized during the planning process. So we can talk to that as well. But we will be there with the Nielsen folks, and we would be happy to talk about how the Nielsen Predictive Analytics could work in our TPM tool. And I think the point being, too, I want to be clear on, this predictive capability, you don't have to be a Nielsen consumption data subscriber to get the predictive capabilities. In the Nielsen world, it's 2 different houses. So just to make that point clear, you don't have to buy the Nielsen consumption data to get this predictive capability. So.
Well, beautiful. Well, Joel, thank you. And for our audience, that concludes all our questions. But as you see on the screen, there's how you can contact Joel. Anytime you want to reach out, and feel free to contact him by email. And again, you can also contact him to request a demo of the AFS TPM tool, or on there as well is request to join our AFS TPM group to get real insights from the professionals over here at AFS. So on behalf of AFS Technologies, I want to thank you for taking the time to participate today. I want to really thank Chris Miller from SunnyD for his participation, and we look forward to seeing him at the POI convention as well. Joel, thank you so much for everything you've done today, my friend. That's been awesome.
Thank you.
As a reminder, all participants will receive an email in the next day so they can get a download of the full presentation. All of the complimentary resources are available at afsi.com. So please visit our website for case studies and more collateral. And again, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your week, and goodbye for now.